Surgical guide using the cyber implant system can be used with a model base or a CT base. The mini implant can be placed with a software, and then we can export the position of the implant to fabricate a frame. Now we can also do that through a model base with a different instruments and using the same component at the end. So we are going to demonstrate the model base system. How to place Zest mini implant 2.4 millimeter diameter designed for locator attachment on a fully edentulous patient. The patient we are using today is not a real patient. It's a patient which has a edentulous mandible, and most of those patients have a reduced height or reduced ridge width, and the mini implant should be placed in the thickness of the ridge, and they must be parallel because locator attachment do not work well if the implants are not strictly parallel. And after impression with alginate, we can reproduce the patient into a cast plaster model. In order to locate or to place ideally well the implant, we use a cyber implant ruler, which is designed on how to space ideally well the locator. This ruler is designed for regular size implant, but the problem with the locator implant is to have enough spacing for the attachment of the locators. So those rules apply also for mini implant, even though the distance between two mini implant is not as critical as a regular implant. The lower case scenario is showing 5 implants, while the upper is using 6 implants. They can be used either way, but here we are going to plan for 4 mini implants. Therefore, we'll have the best 4 location from the upper jaw. We are going to determine the midline first, and when we have the midline, we look at the midline through the window here, and then we can apply the mark with a pencil, and so we have the ridge marked with, the ideal location of the 4 implants. We mount the model into a surveyor table. What we do is that we adjust the height into a horizontal position, and also we like to, based on the orientation of the jaw, we tilt forward the surveyor table. In order to achieve a parallel placement of implant and parallel locator attachment placement, we are using a very low-end press drill by Dremel. So we adjust the height to be able to reach properly. Now we finish with a press drill, and you can see that we have 4 strictly parallel holes, 2 millimeter diameter holes, in the exact direction of the jaw. Very often when we have an edentulous jaw, it's hard to always keep the surgical guide into the same position. So in order to do that, cyber implant offers a very minimally invasive fixation system. In order to do that, we're going to put 2 pins to visualize the direction of the implant, and then we're going to locate the entry point of this fixation screw. Then we will repeat the same thing on the right side of a patient and enter the fixation screw entry point. Our model is now ready to assemble the guide. We need different parts for that. We need 4 guide holder pins of a medium size, and then we need to have 4 guide holders of a medium size, 2 pins for orthopedic screw fixation, and then 1 handle to remove the guide holder pin. The guide holder pins are lubricated using any oil, and the guide holder is inserted with a bevel towards the top of the part. And after assembly, this is engaged into the holes which determines the position of the implant. So, number 2. Finally, the fixation screw holder is placed here, and then we can start the fabrication of the guide. We are going to use Luxatamp as a first layer of the guide. It is important to look at the tapering of the part of the guide holder pin and not overfill the Luxatamp beyond the slope of the part. And now we can wait until it sets. The second layer of the surgical frame holding the guide will be done with triad material used for custom trays. Some layers, some bands of triad are prepared. So the triad is placed using simple technique of hand molding. A distal stabilization table could be also added on each side. This is pretty much the what you want to achieve in terms of size and volume of triad. Try to cover the entire apparatus as well as the Luxatamp frame. We found the most effective way is to cure the triad by 3 minutes increment. 3 minutes, we recommend to move the pin in and out. And also using a guide holder pin, we can put the extractor in place and pull it one per one, and reinsert it carefully. So now we can actually cure the model for an additional 6 minutes. After 6 minutes, we remove all the pin holders, and then the guide is separated, and we are going to cure it in the open position or below to assure that everything is cured. The surgical guide or frame is finished with traditional technique from a lab, and so we have the different guide holders here in aluminum, and here we have the two cavities, and we can see that it fits actually the model very well, and because of that, it will also fit the patient very well. The guides come for the mini implant in two sizes: the light gray or the dark gray guides. The guides are coming into a sterile blister, which are opened very simply. Each box has one guide and one carrier. In order to prepare the recipient of the orthopedic screw, a drill is inserted fully into the frame, and the frame serves as a guide for the drill. So the frame is maintained in place, and then we can insert the orthopedic screws in place. The tightness of the screw can be adjusted in order to have a very rigid fixation. Then we have to pick the right guide. We are going to place a 2.9 Zest mini implant. For that purpose, we will use the dark gray guide with a cortical perforation of 2.8. Prior to that, we are going to trim the gingiva to facilitate the insertion of the locator attachment post-surgery. In order to do that, we are going to use a specific narrow diameter pouch or tissue punch, and this is inserted with the same tool, and we are going to place the first and by turning we can have a very precise cut. All these instruments can be leashed with a silk suture to avoid swallowing from the patient. So now we are ready to carry on the cortical drilling. To do that, we will insert one guide. So we have two ways to proceed. First one is to do one osteotomy at a time, or we can do all together by having 4 different guides. So here we are going to demonstrate the quickest approach, which is all at once, using 4 separate guides instead of changing in between drilling. Then we carry on the surgery very simply. We can then remove the frame. And we're ready to insert the implants. We are now ready to insert the first 2.9mm implant. The 4 implants are installed, and we're going to install now the locator attachment on top. Now the gingiva is much easier to deal with than here is the installation of 4 locator attachments, which are strictly parallel with each other, using the cyber implant surgical guide.